Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something that is absolutely awesome to take a look at, and it's something that I didn't even know existed until probably about 3-4 weeks ago or so. This is actually a Spinosaurus from Bandai Spirits. Now, I had never heard of these dinosaur models until somebody recently posted about them on a Facebook group that I visit, and I instantly was interested, so I had contacted my good friend Dino Mike Mac and had asked him to find out if there was any way he knew of to get a hold of them for a decent price, and he had actually searched them out and found me the Spinosaurus of this group, and I am very happy to now add it to my collection because it is actually really awesome and way bigger than I was expecting it to be. You can see if I bring my hands in here and pick it up, it is an absolutely gigantic Spinosaurus, and again, huge compared to what I was for some reason envisioning in my head that it would be when it arrived. It just blew my mind pulling it out of the box. But it's a really cool, obviously a Spinosaurus that sort of looks like it's meant to be in a quadrupedal pose, but at the same time, maybe it's just sort of leaning down, and that's the reason for the positioning. It's got that really interesting looking version of a paddle-like tail to it, so it's not your most scientifically accurate Spinosaurus, but it is a more up-to-date interpretation of the Spinosaurus regardless, and I actually like the dark color scheme for it with the blacks and grays and stuff. I think it looks really nice, and they've actually done a very good job of painting the model out as a whole. So let's go ahead and jump to a closer look at this really cool looking Spinosaurus right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Spinosaurus, you can see it actually looks really quite nice. We have some nice looking skin texture throughout. The nostrils are sculpted right there. The eye area as well is sculpted nicely. The eye is painted with a yellow. We have a slit-like pupil for the eye. You can also see that trademark Spinosaurus crest up there on the top of the head. They've done a very good job of painting this out and giving it numerous different tones, clearly painted with an airbrush, but you can see it just kind of transitions back and forth really nice and naturally between black and grayish tones, light grayish tones, and then we have a red up here on the crest of the Spinosaurus, and then that red continues to kind of run down the course of the neck and up onto the sail. We do have, again, those same varying tones of color here for the lower jaw. The jaw is actually articulated, and we have a pretty wide gaping open mouth once you articulate that jaw. All of the teeth are sculpted really quite nicely. You can see for the most part they're sculpted individually. Actually, yeah, except for the lower jaw, they seem to be kind of together a little bit, but for the most part they're all sculpted individually. They have a nice, genuine, sharp look to them, which is a huge plus because often you get dinosaur models that have kind of like curved teeth that don't look that great. This one does have some nice, sharp looking teeth. The teeth are all painted with a light grayish tone, which is a pretty interesting tone of color for the teeth, but I think it looks pretty good. We also have a nice looking tongue sculpt here for the inside of the mouth. Everything is painted with a nice lighter tone in there, and the detailing of the inside of the mouth is actually really quite spectacular. You can see it looks really good, and there's also a bit of a glossy look there for the inside of the mouth, which is definitely a plus. And actually, if the shadow wasn't overtaking it so much, as you look back there into the throat, it actually genuinely looks like it has a throat, which is really, really cool. And again, that articulated jaw, as the tail's actually smacking the camera right now, but the articulated jaw works really, really nicely. That's as far closed as it gets, though. It doesn't close any further. You can kind of still see the tongue poking out there, but it does work pretty nicely other than that. You can see we have a lighter tone, kind of like a light yellow here, running along the lower jaw that leads down through the course of the underside of the Spinosaurus. The throat is very nicely sculpted. You could see a pretty strong curve in the neck, nice turn as the dinosaur is looking to its left. You can also see some very big ridges here. Now the sail hit the camera. This dinosaur has such a strong curve to the body. It's actually kind of hard at times to really get, some good shots of it. But you can see again that we have the ridges running down the course of the neck and a nice reddish tone that follows those ridges. You also have quite a bit of wrinkling and creasing here in the neck region of the Spinosaurus on the left-hand side because the neck is turning and the head is turning in this position, so it would definitely be wrinkling that skin up pretty nicely. As you lead down here into the body, you can see the shoulder blade a little bit right there. One thing that is a little bit of a bummer for the figure, you can see as the red comes down, like it's a pretty strong application of the red, but there's a moment here before we lead up into the sail where it just disappears, but it disappears very abruptly. There isn't a smooth transition there at all. But you can see some osteoderms picking up here and running down through the course of the side of the Spinosaurus. The skin texture continues to look really nice. We again have the varying tones of grays and blacks, which look really cool. But you can see the shoulder blade there highlighted in the sculpt. You can also see some wrinkling and everything as you lead down toward the arm of the Spinosaurus. Some nice muscle definition in the arm. You can also see the skin kind of stretching off of the body. There is definitely a seam there where the arm connects. You can also see a seam where the neck connects because the neck and tail actually came disconnected. It came in 3 parts and I had to just piece those together. So you can still see a seam though. Obviously you're going to expect one there when you put the body parts on, but you do see a seam for the arm as well. As you lead down, you can take notice to the elbow right there, some more nice looking skin texture, and a pretty nice looking hand sculpt for the Spinosaurus. You have some nice scoots down the fingers, some nice movement in the fingers as well, some nicely sculpted out and painted nails, nice glossy black for the nails. The only thing that is a bit of a bummer that you can obviously see is that this wrist is pronated, as the wrist is kind of, actually, I should say, the hand is standing on the ground. You can see it's like holding itself up right there like that, which is not exactly what we would see, or at least not what we would expect to see on a Spinosaurus, so that is a little bit of a bummer. But as you lead up into the sail, you continue to see, again, really nice, really vibrant scale detail. You can also see that we have some nice osteoderms moving through the sail, and I like that we transition back and forth between this nice light gray, then that black or very dark gray, and again, it continues to do that through the course of the sail, but as you lead up toward the tips, you have that nice reddish coloration that kind of highlights all of those edges really, really nicely. As you move down here, you can see how it highlights the stomach region here with a lighter tone. Really smooth transitions, I will give them that. The coloration is very nicely applied, again with an airbrush. You can see all kinds of skin wrinkles and skin folds down here in the lower part of the stomach as we transition back to that yellowish tone. As you move up, you've got a few creases in the skin here in front of the thigh. You can make out the hip bone a little bit, as well as some nice muscle definition moving down through the course of the thigh. Again, some variation of color with the lighter grays. Lots of skin wrinkles here leading off of the back of the thigh leading into the tail because the tail has such a strong curve. As you lead down, you can see the kneecap again present there in the front of the leg. Nice calf muscle, pretty smooth transition to that yellowish tone there, and a nice looking foot sculpt as you lead down. Some nice curves in the toes and everything, kind of like a webbed foot look to it as well. And you can also see that we've got some scoots running down the front of the foot down into the toes. Nicely painted nails again with a black and nice glossy black. You can see the dew claw is present there. You can also make out the fact that that foot is kind of bent as it's about to lift up off of the ground, showing the movement of the Spinosaurus here. As you lead out, I again see that very abrupt transition as you have that reddish tone there leading down. It's just gone as you lead out into the tail. The tail primarily is just a blackish tone. I actually don't see any of the grays or anything out here on the tail, at least not right now. I don't see it, but you can see that the actual detailing aspect of the tail does look really cool. We have kind of ridges running along the underside and ridges running along the upper side of the paddle-like tail. Lots of creases as we move out the length of the tail, and again, a really nice curve, like an exceptionally strong curve you can see here to the tail of the Spinosaurus as it leads out, and it looks pretty cool. It gives it a pretty dynamic appearance overall, and definitely gives the model a nice visual. But again, you can see that the tail has a seam here, as that, had to be connected here. I had to push it on and pop it in. But if we take a look at the opposing side, the head's going to be a little hard to get to just because the body's so turned. You can see the head again has that same look to it as what we had just seen on the initial side seam. Very nice looking paintwork as we lead down the course of the neck. Let's try to move the camera back a little bit. Maybe we can get a little bit of a better look at the head. There you go. You can see the head sculpt a little bit nicer. And again, that very nicely painted eye. But as you lead down, you again have all the skin wrinkles, but you can see more stretching over here, more so than wrinkling, because again, the neck is turning away from us, so it would definitely be stretching that skin. You can also see that darker tone here following along the reddish tone of the upper side. Some nice wrinkling and everything increasing as you lead down here into the shoulder. You can see that this arm is lifted up off of the ground quite high up compared to what we see. This one over here is planted. This one is lifted up. You can also see kind of like some webbed fingers as well for the Spinosaurus, giving it that semi-aquatic look. You can really make out the movement and structure and muscle definition of the arm as you move down. Some nicely again painted nails with those glossy blackish tones, nice scoots down the fingers. It looks really cool. Definitely a lot of life in the sculpt of this Spinosaurus. And then as you lead up, you can again make out the shoulder blade and everything. You lead back up into the sail. The sail looks super, super cool again with those nice tones. I love the dark coloration of this, but I also love those reddish tones up there on the top, really highlighting the top of the sail. And as you lead down here, you can again see the skin stretching off of the stomach here. The leg is trailing quite a bit, so it's definitely showing that movement off quite nicely as well. We again lighten the coloration here in the mid-stomach area with that lighter gray, but all of the detail looks really good, really crisp throughout. As you lead back here, you lose focus first of all, but we again have the hip bone here. You can see all the osteoderms and stuff moving throughout. Nice muscle definition again in the thigh. You've got the kneecap and the calf muscle, and then as you lead down, you can again see those nicely sculpted out toes with the nice webbing and also the nicely painted nails. Very, very cool looking. And then as we lead back up, we again lead out into that tail, and you can see how interesting and unique looking that tail is with that very paddle-like look to it. Very interesting looking tail for our Spinosaurus. But as a whole, this thing is just so much better than I expected it to be. Like, I was pretty hyped for its arrival just because it's a really cool looking Spinosaurus. I wish it didn't have a pronated wrist, but as a whole, again, the massive size is what really blew me away when it comes to this model, and I definitely love what I see here with this awesome Spinosaurus. As far as a size goes, it's huge, but the fact that it has this curve to the body is going to make the length seem like it's not as impressive as it really is. So for a length, I would say a little bit over 13 inches, just like a hair, maybe by like an eighth or a 16th, or right around 33 centimeters, maybe a hair over. The height, the highest point absolutely is the tail. I would say about 8.5 inches, maybe even a little bit over. I can't really get in there perfectly, or around the 22 centimeter mark, maybe a hair under that. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our massive Bandai Spinosaurus, and you can definitely see exactly what I've been saying this entire review. It's very large and pretty much dwarfs every model that we have here next to it. But for another comparison, when it comes to large Spinosaurus models, few are as impressive as the older Essien, the Spinosaurus from PNSO. However, you can see that this Bandai version is actually significantly larger even than the older Spinosaurus from PNSO. So I really think that this comparison, again, shows off how massive this Spinosaurus is. For another comparison, we also have a Mattel Velociraptor and Mattel Dilophosaurus, which you can see are both standing in front of the Spinosaurus, but both look so puny next to it. If we actually put the Dilophosaurus there underneath the tail, you can really get a good idea of how small it is in comparison. But for another comparison, there is the, again, random lot of dinosaurs I've been using quite a bit lately with the Schleich Diabloceratops, the Safari Ltd U Tyrannus, as well as the Collectae Deluxe Dimetrodon next to the Spinosaurus, again, all absolutely tiny in comparison. And then for an interesting comparison, we have the Hammond Collection T-Rex taking on the Spinosaurus, and you can see that the Hammond Collection T-Rex is definitely bigger. However, the Hammond Collection Rex is also huge, but the Spinosaurus still sports a pretty good size next to the Rex. Obviously, they aren't accurately sized to each other, but I feel like the fact that the Spinosaurus still looks pretty big next to the Rex is a pretty good indicator of how large this Spino is. And then for one final, totally random comparison, we have the Beasts of the Mesozoic Zuniceratops, which I like to use a lot because it's a very popular release from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line. Here next to the Spinosaurus from Bandai, again showing off the fact that this Spinosaurus is quite huge. So this Bandai Spirits Spinosaurus model is really, really cool. It's also a little bit of a mystery to me because I don't know much about it. I don't know much about how they were released over there. I know they're not the easiest things to find in the world, especially here in the United States. I have found them on eBay. There are a few different paint variants of this Spino as well, but I can't seem to find this specific paint variant on eBay, and the ones that I have found are pretty expensive. The cheapest one that I found so far is like $102 or $103, which is a pretty hefty price tag, but when you look at the size of this model, you know, it's not that bad at all. It's like pretty good amount of dinosaur for that amount of money. So even at the $100 price tag, if you pick that one up, which I will include a link in the description to that particular listing on eBay, you know, it's not a bad deal regardless because it is still a gigantic Spinosaurus. But again, there are a few different paint variants for this. I know there's a bluish version, and I don't remember if there are any others, but I know there's this version, a bluish version, and I think I might have seen one other paint variant potentially of this. But regardless, again, no matter what paint variant you get, you're still going to get a really cool Spino, and it seems like every paint variant that they've released of it looks pretty nice. This is definitely my favorite of all, for sure. I love the dark tones of color for it. I love that light reddish tone running along the back, adding that nice element of flashiness to it. So I'm happy to actually get the paint variant that I wanted the most, which is a huge, huge plus for this one. I just wish I knew a little bit more about their releases. Again, there are a few different dinos in this range. There is actually a Tyrannosaurus, a larger T-Rex, similar in size, I think, to this. And there's also some smaller figures. There's like a T-Rex, a Brachiosaurus, a Triceratops, and potentially a raptor of some kind. I forget exactly which species it was. But definitely some pretty cool figures. Those ones are a good bit smaller than the Spinosaurus, though, like a lot smaller. So you have some smaller ones, and then you've got two larger, which is the Spino and the Rex. The Spino, again, though, has a really cool appearance to it. Really nice dynamic visual overall with the pose, the turn in the body. The articulated jaw is an awesome touch. I always love having articulated jaws on any model. The paint job looks really cool. Again, nice and natural, but not something you often see are darker colored Spinos like this. So I actually really like it. And again, it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air as far as the paint scheme goes. The fine detail overall looks really good. Nice, crisp detail. They've done a great job of showing the movement off of the Spinosaurus with skin wrinkles, skin folds, skin stretching, all of that fun stuff. The skin texture as well looks great throughout. So the only big problem for me is the fact that the wrist is pronated on the left arm. I really wish it didn't have that going on, but outside of that, I think it's actually quite the spectacular looking Spinosaurus and definitely one worth picking up. So if you are interested in grabbing one of these for yourself, again, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on eBay. It's the only place I know of currently where you can find one of these. Again, I don't think it's this exact paint variant that is on eBay for that $100 price tag or like $103 price tag, but regardless, you can search around. Maybe you'll find one somewhere else, or maybe you'll find one on eBay at some point. So again, make sure you grab this Spino if you are interested. Also, one last huge shout out and a thank you to my good friend Dino Mike Mac for being the absolute man and helping me to acquire this one. And also make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.